Hello, welcome team. In this video, we're looking at how to animate in Unreal, how to set up the layout, how to use the timeline, otherwise known as the sequencer, set some keyframes with a simple scene, show you how to import some reference, and we'll look at how the control rig works, do some animation, show you how to add layers, also breaking it down to a single track, also adding some props and parenting. When you open up Unreal, this will be the default layout. We have a viewport, we have a details panel and an outliner panel. So we want to set this up for animation. Coming from Maya, I tend to set it up so it feels and looks a lot more like Maya. So I like to grab my outliner and I put it over to the left side. I'll leave my details panel here because that's more like your channel box. But there is also an anim details panel, which I'll dock over here. We can go to Windows. Up top, you can type sequencer and it will come up here. Generally dock that right down the bottom so it takes up the full lower panel. That's the sequencer there, which is our timeline, but you can see there's no actual timeline here yet. We'll get to that. We also want a content browser, which is basically the file scene browser, which is just up here. Or again, we can just type content browser 1. We're going to drag that. I like to drag it over here to the side so it's kind of out of the way. One thing you're going to want to do is invert your middle mouse pan. And the way to do that is we go to Edit, Editor Preferences, and in the search bar, you could type invert, preferably the right way. Scroll down to the bottom and you'll see invert middle mouse pan. Tick that guy on and it will feel just like you're navigating in Maya. In the content browser, I'm going to create a new folder so I can create a new project. Just keep things organized. And I'm going to call this scene example. So in my scene example, I'm going to create another folder and call this sequences. And inside my sequence folder, I'm going to create an actual level sequence. So I'm just going to right click down to cinematics, level sequence. And we're calling this scene example sequence. If I double click on this, you'll notice the sequencer has now changed. And there's an actual timeline with frames that I can scrub along, but I don't have anything in my scene yet. Now there is this button here. And if I click on that, it will open up our curve editor. And since I'm working on a single screen, I'm just going to dock my curve editor next to my timeline. Normally I'd have this on a second screen, so it was a bit bigger. Okay, so now I've got a sphere in my scene and I'm just going to set it some keys so we can see it move from one side of the screen to the other. So I can scrub my timeline, I can see my sphere, I can select my sphere and I can move it around, but because it is not in the sequencer, I can't set any keys on it that will stick. In the outliner, I'm going to grab my sphere, I'm just going to drag and drop it into the sequencer, which then creates a track in the sequencer. And there's a transform track, so you can see the location, rotation, and scale. And now I can set keys on it. So before I do that, a couple of things that I want to do is make sure that this guy is ticked on. That is the auto key. There's another feature I want to turn on over here, and it is keep playhead in playback range while scrubbing, which doesn't make a lot of sense now, but when you've got more complicated scene setups and multiple sequences in the one timeline, if you don't have that ticked on and you go outside your scrubbing range, you can get errors popping in due to things spawning in and out. Keeps your timeline nice and tidy by keeping that on. Next thing I want to do is up the top here, by default, in the viewport, it has snapping turned on. And if I keep snapping on, it's probably not as obvious. If I turn that up to 100, you'll see it pops around, but it also similar for rotations and also for scaling. So I'm just going to turn those off. When they're white, they've turned off. Zero out that location. So now I can actually start to set keys and animate my ball. So I'm going to go to frame 1. Actually, I'm going to just tuck that in. This is frame 1. I'm going to put my ball, my sphere at -400. Am I on the ground or not? That'll be 50. That'll be 50. Fine. I can just hit S, sets the keyframe. Also looking at the curve editor over here, and then if I go to frame, let's go to frame 100, we'll drag this guy over to 400, and I hit play. There you go, my ball ramps up, comes to a stop. Now I've set a couple of keyframes, easy peasy. We can look into the curve editor. When you select your curves, you've got some options with adding extra keys. By default, especially in the current version, this is 5.61 of Unreal, the tween machine lives inside the curve editor. Hit the tween machine drop down and you can see most of the normal tween machine style options. If I grab the slider, it will add a key to whichever side is most interesting. And I can change my handles to linear, so I don't get that ease in and ease out, it's just constant. I'm going to add some folders to my sequencer so I can keep it tidy. So I've got a characters folder, which I'll put my sphere into. I'm going to set a color so it's easier to see. I'm also going to add a folder for cameras. If we wanted to add a camera, click on the camera in the sequencer and it will create a cinematic camera for us. Boink. It's added a whole bunch of extra stuff. So here's our cinema camera actor. I'm going to drag that into the cams folder. You'll also notice that we have these new buttons. If I click that button there, it locks my viewport to that camera. And if I had multiple scenes and multiple cuts, and I click that top one, that will lock all the cinematic cameras to the viewport. Normally when we're animating, we like to see the viewport from the camera, and we like to have another viewport that gets us close to our character. So we're going to open Windows, go to Viewports, add an extra viewport. I'm just going to put those side by side. I select my character and I press F to frame up. So now you can see I've got two viewports which are locked to the cinematic actor. But what I want is, you can see I've got two viewports that are locked to the cinematic actor, but I want to be able to manipulate my right screen so I can get closer and see different angles of my character. The way we do that is we go up the top of the viewport and untick allow cinematic control. Untick that guy, and then we're going to change from being locked to the cinematic camera, and we're going to go to lock to camera cuts. Unselect our specific camera, and this way I can move around my second viewport while my main viewport is still with shot. Now I'm going to pull in a video file, some reference of a bouncing ball, and show you how simple that is. So I'm going to go to my content browser, bouncing ball, and I've made a reference folder here, which is currently empty. I'm just going to drag a video that I shot on my phone into the content browser. Simple as that. If I open that up, double click, we get this viewport, and if I hit open, there you go. There is my tennis ball bouncing. Pause. You can scrub into anywhere in this video you would like. You can make a thumbnail so that you can see which video you've got imported. And I'm just going to close that. Now I'm going to drag this into my scene. I'm going to frame up my video here, and you see that what you get is a an image plane, which is cool, but what we want to do is drag our image plane into our scene. Would you like to disable media player actor? Yes. But now you can see I've got a new track. I'm going to create a new folder. Call that ref. Set a color. Drag my image plane into my ref folder just to keep things clean. And now I'm going to rotate around. Rotate around and just size it up so it's looks okay in my camera. Does need to cache a little bit. I'll slide it in the timeline. But if I play, there we go, doink, doink, doink. So I'm just going to adjust my timeline so it fits my ref a bit better. So now I can go along and plot out some keyframes based on my reference